for a short one, doing a little painting. My wife took me out for a wonderful dinner for Father's Day and woke me up with Vietnamese coffee. So, second Father's Day was pretty awesome too. Also, she bought me gifts, which I did not expect. So, I'm 2 books closer to having every single one of the collector's edition of Berserk. So, I mean, so far my day's been pretty darn good. So, what are we talking about? Ramming speed and mutants. Well, for one thing, ramming speed is because I'm working on these 1 to 300 scale between 3rd and 5th century BC ships. Printed them out. And what's crazy is that the company that sells the STLs actually gives you the game rules for free. So a typical game being around 350 to 500 points, I have found out would equal, depending on how you load your ships out, between 2 and 5 warships. And then, of course, there's different army lists if you want to play Athenians, Cretians, Macedonians, etc. And you can mark your ships because, like, the bull, that's Crete. So a ship with a big bull head on the front is Crete. Now, one thing I did, also, guys, I did do the magenta wash on the corpses, the piles of corpses. And if I get really motivated, I might go back and like put some bone on the exposed rib cages, or I might not, because I mean, let's be honest, those guys are all ripped to shit, and their rib cages would probably not be bone white because they're covered in blood, right? So how many of these did I end up making? I don't know, like 20. And Dungeon Professor, he homemade them. He didn't have a 3D printer, which if he ain't got a 3D printer now, I don't know what Professor Dungeon Master's doing, because he's got to be making a little bit of spare cash. You know what I mean? With his channel. He's doing very well. And, I know I watch his videos, so I'm contributing. But this is how many I made. And I figure they will be useful for pretty much everything. D&D, like I was saying the other day, playing Dungeons and Dragons, it would be kind of fun if every time the players kill a monster or something like that, you replace the monster miniature with just that bloody pile of guts and stuff. You know what I mean? And then over the course of a battle, you could have your whole tabletop just get completely covered with all these corpses. So, if the idea of that is not super exciting to you, then, I don't know, blame my upbringing or something, but something about, having a table full of corpses all over the place is exciting to me. And on top of that, it's kind of you could use it tactically in the game, because you could say that players running through a square with a bloody pile of guts in it, representing, of course, someone who just got hacked to death or something, right? You could say that that's kind of difficult terrain, and they're going to have to make, a dex check or something like that. Or I mean, they could, in theory, slip in the blood. Somebody is in chat. I didn't even turn chat on. So happy Father's Day. There's my brother. Oh my goodness. I never get to see him anymore because he's too busy playing those Korean games where if you say all the right stuff, you get to see the girl naked. It's crazy. I mean, to be fair, I played one too, but you didn't get to see anybody naked. And mine, I just got to marry the Korean girl that had the biggest boobs. And apparently is a actual model in Korea. Or used to be. She's like 40 now, so I don't know if they're going to have a lot of 40-year-old, models or whatever, but see, one thing, I'm sitting here and I'm super tempted to invite my brother onto the channel with me, but I'm having a really good day and I really don't want to have to deal with, rejection. So I'm not sure I even want to attempt to invite him on, because every time I invite him on, I always have to deal with rejection. And, I'm a sensitive lad. A lot of people that may not know that. But your boy is very sensitive. And I might act tough and stuff a lot of the times, but I'm really not a tough guy at all. I mean, deep down inside, I'm actually a very sensitive man. So, But, of course, happy Father's Day to all you mother lovers out there. And I hope you got something planned for your kids, or you already did something with your kids, or you're planning tonight to make some kids. I mean, whatever. Whatever you got going on. I just want you to know I'm rooting for you. Now, I've got some miniatures to paint. Most of them are going to be pretty easy. I'm going to hang out with the wife. She's going back on the road later. You can't hang out with the wife while you're... I get it, though. I get it. See, that's, like I said, that's why I was afraid to ask, because the rejection has me down now. Anyway, I am going to have to mix this Storm Blue with some of the Pro Acryl metallic base to make a really kind of metallic blue swirly color, because I'm going to be painting this, I believe it's called a blight worm. And the thing is, they excrete an oil that refracts light and makes them basically appear to be invisible until they attack. Oh, look at this guy. The Jewish guilt worked.
I will hop on for a few minutes. Yeah, whiny little shit. Did you watch that video I sent you?
No. I mean, you never joined me on my live stream, so you can't really be very disappointed, right? Oh my God, he quit. But anyway, if you don't recognize this, this is a Gamma World monster. And, all right, you're back.
Watch that video I sent you. Load it up and share it with everybody.
I don't think I have it here because I'm on the little piece of shit computer.
Send it to you on your Facebook Messenger.
Let me see if you recognize this.
Kinda, it's blurry. Isn't that the horse centipede thing from Gamma World?
It is a centistede. And then I'm getting ready to paint some eyeballs and stuff. We have the giant domesticated riding beetle. / cockroach / whatever it is. And then, in addition to that,
And
we
then
have the bireme, which was early Greek, and I'm painting the whole top part of the outside hull this nice blue color. Because apparently a lot of times they would decorate their ships in bright colors and stuff.
I like the Romans' idea of naval battle.
Board the enemy and then let the legions kill everything.
Yeah, ram them and let legions board.
Yeah. They had to come up with that idea because they simply could not defeat the Carthaginians in a naval battle.
Yeah, well, their boats sucked.
Well, they had Carthaginian boats by then.
Yeah, they just didn't. They sucked because
they captured a Carthaginian ship and they pretty much rebuilt the whole thing.
They could have had a modern battleship from the U.S. Navy, and their Navy would have still sucked because they didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah, it took them a while. They eventually got very good at naval warfare. Eventually.
You know what? If you keep doing the same stupid thing over and over again, eventually it might work for you.
Well, the problem with the ships you're talking about that had the giant towers with the ramps, though, is in heavy seas, those things would capsize.
Yeah.
Because these things, they're very shallow draft vehicles.
Yeah,
so there's the blue on the top. There's shields there, which I will actually paint. And if you look on the inside, you can see the oarsmen.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to get my flesh coat color out and paint those oarsmen because they're probably not wearing any clothes other than a loincloth. And depending on which these guys, these Crete guys, they didn't use slaves for their oarsmen.
Well, a lot of the ships, not the Crete guys, but the other ships, they'd be wearing a loincloth and a chain.
Yeah, that was more of a Roman thing. Amongst the Greeks, the oarsmen, a lot of times, were like looked up upon. And in addition to that, they were also expected to defend the ship. So if the ship rammed and was starting to get boarded by enemy soldiers, it would be the oarsmen that would grab swords and shit and run up to the deck and start fighting it off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, the oarsmen during the Hellenistic period, for the most part, were considered professional soldiers and earned quite a bit of money.
Windrunner was asking if you had a Dune server.
I do not, but I've already hooked him up with the server I'm on.
Nice.
I mean, I don't know. I might consider getting a private Dune server, but the problem with that is the game really is designed for people to interact.
Yeah. I should have my computer in about 2 weeks.
Because there's a lot of trading that goes on. There's a lot of late game PvP. There's some early game PvP. Like if you see a shipwreck, right?
Yeah.
You can go to loot the shipwreck and there's some really good stuff in it. The problem is shipwrecks are areas where the rules of Canley no longer apply.
Huh?
You sure you don't want more chicken? Reviving his new home might have been an insurmountable task.
Well, yeah, I got fried chicken. So what I'm basically saying is that right now there is, according to the game, there is a war of assassins going on. So, you know, it's okay to kill the enemy as long as you don't get caught.
Items that should be obtained.
But if you go to a crash starship and start looting it and shit, that is just full on open PvP. anybody and literally everybody can try and smoke your ass. And in this game, when you die, you drop half the stuff in your pack.
Yeah, and you don't get it back, right?
No. You can go get it back. The where you don't get it back that I was telling you about is if you get ate by a sandworm.
So it's not like Conan where if you die, you drop everything in your pack?
No, you drop half and like all of your money. And half of your whatever you've been out there looting. So I mean, if you got no money on you and you don't have anything in your inventory and somebody kills you, other than the fact that all of your equipment's going to take a hit because the durability, it's not a big deal, But if you've got like 3,000 Solari on you and you get killed, you definitely want to run back and grab your corpse.
Well, yeah, I want to run back and get my stuff anyway.
Well, I mean, luckily all of your equipment that you're wearing and carrying never drops. The other thing, though, is if you get caught running across the desert and a sandworm gets you, you reappear buck naked and the only thing in your inventory is a sandworm tooth.
Well, at least you can make a Chris knife.
In late game, supposedly, you can make a Chris knife. But you got to remember, though, it's Dune, but it's an alternate reality of Dune.
Yeah.
So it's like Paul Atreides was never born.
Yeah, he decided not to be born in this universe.
Yeah. Imagine being so powerful that you can decide that in an alternate universe, you're just not going to be born. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm just not going to be born in that universe. I think I'll just, not.
Let's see what happens.
Well, because he said that was the best way to avoid everything that happened, right?
He might have just been tired.
But the side effect of Paul not being born, you've seen the trailer, right?
Yeah.
So you know that there are no Fremen.
Yeah. You're sent to Arrakis to try to find the missing Fremen.
Some hid somewhere. So yeah, I'm following a bunch of like information trying to find Fremen, but currently not having a really easy time of it.
There's no Fremen here.
Yeah. And mostly doing battle with scavengers and, the sort. So that's kind of what I do all day is fight with scavengers and try to avoid the Chom patrols that are over the desert because they have starships that are just flying around like scanning. And if you get caught in their scan, they will drop a 4-man team of, armored mercenaries to kill you.
So they're just being dicks.
Yeah. And the mercenaries are pretty tough until you get to that stage where you're wearing like the iron or steel tier steel suit and you've got like a really good couple of weapons. At which point, as long as you like don't run up and try to fight all 4 of them at the same time, you can own them up pretty easy.
Yeah, I was watching some of the gameplay, and it seems like it's not a run up and chop type of game or run up and shoot type of game. It's more of a you better try to use some brains in this combat or you're going to die.
Yeah, that's the thing is there's a lot of instances where let's say you're running through an area trying to loot it or something, right? And there's bandits there. And you will encounter like a group of bandits where one of them has a shield, a personal combat shield, and a sword or a knife, right?
Yeah.
And then there'll be 4 of them versus you. But then again, if you have friends, which I don't, you can bring friends with you, right? So you'll have the knife expert, you'll have a couple of guys with assault rifles, and then sometimes you'll have a guy with a heavy weapon. Like, you know how in the old Dune Nintendo game, the Sardaukar had that rotary gun?
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll have a guy with that rotary gun, and he'll just be laying the smack down. And
See,
if you
that's
get
what I'm
caught
going
in a
for.
situation where like they can all draw a line of sight on you at the same time, you're done. Because, you know, you got two guys with assault rifles unloading on you, a guy in your face trying to stab you, and a guy with, you know, a rotary cannon. And it's
I
just
want to
like,
be the rotary cannon guy.
huh?
I want to be the heavy weapons guy.
Then you would start out as a trooper, and there's 3 skill trees, and one of the skill trees goes heavy into heavy weapons. Like makes it where they're easier for you to carry and all that kind of thing. I started out as a trooper, you know, Army soldier. And during the course of my adventures, I unlocked Mentat. And Mentat gives you a ton of like assassination skills.
Yeah, like 2 for how.
Yeah, so you get a ton of skills that make killing people at distance easy. You also get a like a turret you can set up, and when you activate it, it shoots hunter killer at somebody. You know, so you can sneak up and set it up, and then sneak back and activate it, and the hunter killer go after somebody. You if you spec correctly, you get a bonus to ranged attacks, which synergizes with my trooper loadout, which is the assault rifle trooper. So I've done everything to give myself as much bonuses with rifles and disruptors as possible. You know
See,
what I mean?
I was thinking also maybe going for a planologist.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a good one. And then now the one I would like to open, because you can open every single career if you want, but it's just a matter of you only have so many skill points, right?
Yeah.
I would kind of like to open up the sword master. You know, like Duncan, Idaho.
Yeah, I heard that was a good one too.
Yeah, I think that would be a good backup for the gunnery that I already have, because, you know, I carry a sword that I made. It's a good sword too, you know, purple. And so if somebody runs up on me, right, I can pull the sword out. And sword fighting's kind of cool. You like beat the shit out of them until they're stunned. And when they're stunned, you hold the attack button down and you do a slow attack to kill them. Whereas with a gun, you just shoot them until their Holzman shield just, you know, goes out of service, basically.
Shoot them until they don't move, and then shoot them again just to be safe.
Yeah, because the shields are good and all, but if somebody with a machine gun, you have a Holzman shield, and somebody with a machine gun just unloads on you. What's up, Jose? Eventually, because every hit it stops drains power.
Yeah.
Eventually, they will run your shield out power, and then you'll be dead.
Are they using shields out in the? Are they letting you use shields out in the desert?
Oh, absolutely! Run out into the desert and turn the shield on.
No, that's how sandworms eat. It don't matter how powerful a shield is.
If you activate a Holzman shield in the desert, you are 100% guaranteed to have a sandworm appear.
Yeah, that's why I was asking that, because it's like if they're not following that from the books, what are they even thinking?
Now, my character ain't got a Holzman shield. I've got a suspensor. which means if I jump off of a 1,000-foot tall whatever,
Yeah,
I'll
you're just
fall normal, but when I hit terminal velocity, the suspensor will kick on and I'll just land. And also, if I double jump, the suspensor will kick on and I'll, you know. So it's you know how like in the Dune movie it showed the Sauta car jumping out of ships.
yeah.
It's that.
I know what you're talking about, dude. If it's
Yeah.
Dune related, I know about it.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that's what it is. I've got that same kind of suspensor like the Sauta car did. And so I can literally just leap out of a ship or off a high place and just drift down, which is really cool. I mean, I like it. I think it's badass.
Yeah,
I've got a Kharkov 38 assault rifle, the upgraded one. And I just built, because I've got enough high-end materials, I just built like a Mark something disruptor. And the thing with the disruptor is it's a projectile weapon like the assault rifle, but it fires the darts at a lot of different velocities on purpose to specifically defeat shields.
Yeah.
So yeah, it basically ignores Holzman shields, pretty much. The negative is it's kind of short range, because even though it counts as a rifle, it's more like a submachine gun. I also have a special blueprint that I found for a Mala pistol that was designed by Count Finring. And it's you know how Paul Atreides had the Mala pistol and they're like, give that, and he gave it up.
Yeah.
And the pistol is just a pistol, right? Well, this one that was designed by Count Finring, he replaced the spring and the action and everything. So it fires full auto.
If only he would have been born with nuts.
Yeah, he would have been the Kwisatz Haderach.
Hey, did you hear about the conflict between Israel and Iran?
I saw that they were chucking missiles at each other, and I thought,
France already surrendered.
that's a funny joke. It's funny because it's true.
Yeah, it's like Minnesota now. It's got so many Haitians that it hardly looks like Somalia anymore.
Yeah, that was funny. That's a funny joke. So instead of little Mogadishu, it's little, I don't know, I can't think of a city in Haiti.
Doesn't they have like
Port-au-Prince?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, instead of little Mogadishu, it's little Port-au-Prince. I'm sure the Haitians are not the Haitians, the
Skinny
the
Somalis.
skinnies are probably super pissed.
Yeah.
Because they're like hardcore Muslims, and now all of a sudden they've been invaded by a bunch of witch doctors and shit. They're probably like, WTF is going on here? But hey, welcome to America. Yeah, Tim Walz, I guess, is kind of in hiding, laying low since not only did the assassin that killed those people the other day and tried to kill 2 more, not only was that guy associated with Tim Walz, so was his wife.
Yeah. Hey, TCG.
Crafting Gamer, what is up? So they're saying that it's like, so this is the second or third, depending on how you want to count it, person directly associated with Tim Walz's administration that has, either keyed a Tesla or, well, actually is like a lot of Teslas, or killed a Democratic senator. And he was far, far left. And his reasoning behind killing that Democrat senator is she voted to take illegal immigrants off of Medicaid.
Yeah, I saw that.
And it pissed him off so bad that he decided to literally planned assassination. He dressed up like a cop, went to their house, and shot them.
Yeah.
That is some crazy shit. And then the View, Sonny Holston and that bunch of fat cows, they'll sit on their fat asses and talk about how all the political violence is from the right. Except I honestly can't really remember. I mean, honestly, a true fair question here. When's the last time like an ultra right person committed some political? I guess that guy in Texas that shot all those people because he hated Mexicans.
Well, the people
But
who
then
shot,
again, he was a leftist.
people who shot Kennedy, you can't even count those for being right because they were, government.
Yeah, they were CIA and FBI, so or we can believe that what's his name really was just that good of a shot. I mean, he was an ex-Marine.
They've already
Oswald.
they've already released the files about the Kennedy assassinations.
Yeah, but I'm just saying the dude was an ex-Marine, and if there's one thing Marines do in their basic training, it's range time. They do a lot of range time. They're just all over it, right? But I don't know if that would make somebody capable of that shot. That was one hell of a shot.
Well, yeah.
A moving target from a couple hundred yards.
Well, that's
elevated. And I mean, that's
what Gunny was talking about in Full Metal Jacket.
That is an amazing shot.
Yeah.
But TCG, if I didn't say hi. And today,
brother, I gotta go help Gregory cook.
Okay, you go help Gregory cook.
Love you.
I love you too, my brother. Today, I'm doing something totally different. I am painting, but instead of the last couple of things I've been doing, I am painting up giant writing bugs, which I will use either for a sci-fi game or a sci-fi game. Not for a fantasy game, though, because that's lame. But this won't be the only option players will have to buy if they want to have a mount. They can also buy or capture one of these. Since these guys run wild all over the place. So, yeah. He'll be pretty easy to paint. They're just really gray or dappled or whatever. So, you see these guys do horsey tail and horsey head, but this is what in Gamma World is called a centipede because people ride them. I think I might have added too many body parts. The one in the book only has like 6 sets of legs. Mine have like 8, 9, 10 sets. Some mine are just special. We'll just say that. Mine are just really big. And then, of course, I've got this Orlan to paint. And Orlans are a kind of stable mutant. They're in the players or the monster manual, but they're good guys if you talk to them. And their deal is they basically have 4 arms, 2 heads, and the sets of arms are controlled by different heads. So they can pretty much act twice in a round because so yes, I'm painting up a bunch of mutants. Like I just started, I need to paint his claws, but I got this orb bat. Hey, you laugh, but its special thing in addition
I wasn't
to
laughing. I was coughing.
Claws,
Sorry.
Is that it actually can irradiate you. Which is, are you sick again, dude?
Oh, no, it's my asthma. It's acting up.
Yeah. Good thing we live when we live, right? Or you'd be dead. So I'm going to give him a really bright, like hazardy green radioactive eye. ogre beast riders from the ogre mall tribes. 3D printing a dragon. I'm gonna make a diorama called Taming the Beast. Yeah. Yeah. That's what I called my honeymoon. Anyway. And then on top of that, as a side project, because I printed them out and I want to play the war game, my buddy BRC said he might. I have all these 3rd to 5th century BC Greek triremes and biremes. So, yeah. And the game basically plays with 5 or 6 ships on a side on a 4x4 table. And you just, I mean, it's Greek warfare on ships. So the whole deal is to ram your opponent.
You know, what other country did that? There's
Rome,
probably a lot.
Carthage,
Japan.
everyone that used that style of ship, because these style of ships were used like right up into the Punic Wars and beyond, you know?
Yeah, Japan was a little late to the new stuff, so their navy was actually kind of crap at the time. And they went
Well, until they came to America and they're like, help us with our navy. And we did.
Yeah.
And then they got into a war with Russia and whipped their asses.
But, you know, they were fighting Korea at one point, and they were still using that kind of, sea vessel where you're supposed to ram into the enemy and board them with a bunch of people. And the Koreans countered it by making a ship that has basically a giant spiked covering.
Yeah, the
and
Korean
cannons.
turtle ship.
Yep.
Yeah, the
where one of the, I think it was like 5 of those took out the entire
miasma, the fictional thing that made people sick. Yeah, don't talk to me about mask and all that bullshit, Jose. Come on now. The only mechs in my era that have masks are ultra rare Comstar mechs that the players will probably never see unless they're stupid enough to try and start a war with Comstar. And that would not be smart. In Battletech, you pay your freaking phone bills because otherwise Comstar comes after you. And they are not a joke. I mean, first they shut down the hyper generators that they send messages with, and if that doesn't send you a message, eventually they send in a Comstar team to. Depending on the situation, they either send agents in to assassinate you, or they send mechs in to just, wreck everything. So here we have a vicious mutant animal that is sure to strike terror into the hearts of everyone. And that is the spider goat.
The spider goat?
Yeah, it's got the body of a spider and the head of a goat.
Be scarier if it was a llama with a hat.
Well, the thing is, and these things usually run in packs. The thing is that the spider goat is carnivorous. Its horns are venomous. It can throw webs from its backside. It can climb walls. Here's what happened. During the last war, humanity unleashed not only nuclear weapons, but nanite biological weapons. And some of these biological weapons were literally like super viruses that were designed specifically to rewrite the genetics of every biological thing in an area. Because, I mean, that's a civilization ending weapon, if you think about it. You drop this a virus that's engineered to just rewrite your DNA. And as a result, you end up with half centipede, half horses, and crazy shit. So a lot of the mutants are not the result of being in the area of a nuclear explosion, because those people all died
Nope, biogenic weapons.
and turned into shadows. But there were bioweapons that effed everything up really bad. I mean, some people may have mutated from the increased background radiation because, over time they would have had people dying of cancer, but then, over like 1 in 1,000 children would be born with something good, but the rest of that 1,000 would be born with like brain tumors. So,
Yeah,
you
here's the
know,
thing. I wouldn't say that it'd be good. It'd probably be less bad.
I mean, look, yeah.
In fiction, yeah, you could say good, but in reality, if there was a way that, DNA could stop itself from being torn apart by radiation, it wouldn't be a good thing. It would just be like, let's get rid of this, and that seems to fix the problem, but you're also losing a lot of the things that,
Well,
would help
that's
you
where you
live.
end up with people born with like stunny arms and, you know,
Yeah.
but one
But
out of 1,000 of them might be born with like an
it,
extra heart for some reason.
I think it had to do with I think what was it, malaria, where there was like the sickle cell that people would have, and that's where it would attach to. And
Mhm.
in certain areas, people were being born without that because of the disease.
Yeah,
And it wasn't a good
I'm
thing.
just
It was
saying
just
that people can, okay, we know for a fact, I'm not talking evolution here. I'm talking about
adaptation.
a creature adapting to its environment.
Well, that's usually what it means by adaptation. It's what I'm
Yeah.
talking about. It changes something,
So if a
usually not for the
human
best.
was exposed to additional radiation than we already are, because we're already exposed to a shit ton of radiation every day.
Yeah,
Um,
a lot
it
of it
would
harmless, but yeah.
cause a lot of genetic issues, defects, mutations, whatever you want to call them, right? But I mean, it's like the lottery, Leth. Eventually, one of these genetic issues is going to be kind of positive,
Eh,
regardless. I mean, eventually, that's just what's going to happen. You're going to have this, you're going to have someone born. And like I said, it could be something simple like their heart is just slightly different, but more efficient for the area they live in. So now he has kids, and there's a chance that that mutation carries on to his offspring. All of a sudden, you've got these humans with like double functional hearts, which means, they basically never get tired because their blood never runs out of oxygen to deliver
sad,
to the muscles, because the heart is just,
sadly, that's not how it works in reality. At least not
Shut
observable.
up. How about that? How
Sorry.
does that make you feel? Does that make you feel good? I'm over here trying to explain some shit, and you're just over there pissing all in my bowl of Cheerios like it's your job.
Like in fiction, you could have it like that. It's just
Look, I'm not arguing whether or not. I actually think what I just described could plausibly happen over a long enough
maybe.
timeline. Yes, if you're exposed to heightened levels of radiation over a long enough timeline, most of the people are going to die from various birth defects and shit, but eventually one of them will be born somehow with something positive. It's kind of like how people develop melanin, right? It's like at one point they didn't have melanin and they're getting sunburned all the time, and then thousands of years later one of them gets born black as shit and doesn't get sunburned, and everybody's like, well, huh. That's all I'm saying, man. Come on. Give me such a hard time about this.
I'm not trying to give you a hard time. I'm just. I just don't know if it works like that because, again, it's not what
I
we've
just
been
explained
observing.
how it works exactly like that.
But it's not been observed. It's like, I don't know what to
Yes.
say.
Yeah. Okay. You're right. It hasn't been observed, but we do know the oldest humans did not have melanated skin.
Yeah.
It was a development because of where they lived, because, if they didn't develop something, they were just going to be walking around burnt to shit all day long. And that would suck. You know what I mean? It's like you're walking around and your skin's blistering off your pale ass. And it was okay when those tribes were up in Europe or wherever the hell they were. But now they're in the freaking savannah of Africa, and it sucks balls. And over who knows how many generations, something in their DNA clicked, and then they had melanin. Or the other option is that we started out melanated, and when the people moved out of Africa to Europe, because they didn't need the protection from the sun, eventually something clicked and they just stopped producing melanin.
Actually, I think that one was a theory, but has now since been disproven.
Yeah, the out of Africa theory.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, I don't know about it, But I mean, the hardcore guys that stand for the science, they're going to argue that shit to the grave.
Yeah.
Because history is weird in that the people who have wrote history or teach history are very inflexible when it comes to anything having to do with history that might change something that they believe. So somebody at some point come up with the out of Africa theory, and all the other shill scientists at the time were like, yeah, that sounds good. And they all bought into it, except now there's evidence that it's wrong. But what would you call it? Corporate history, big history? I mean, I don't know what you would call it, but the establishment historians are like, no. And they don't want to even talk about it. And that's an issue, I think. Not that they're wrong, because maybe they're right, but the fact that they're not even willing to
Question it at all.
question it at all, and that they literally attack anyone
Who does?
And it's like, okay, this guy's got a theory, you disagree with it, that doesn't mean you have to go out of your way to
It's almost like they hinge their whole personality on it.
well, yeah. And the only people who should be allowed to do that are firefighters.
Fair.
So it's kind of like that one guy who is absolutely a scientist, and he had his theory that Neanderthal were actually apex predators and used to eat humans, and that's why we're actually afraid of the dark, and that any Neanderthal blood we have in us was probably the result of some non-consensual Neanderthal loving. And eventually we developed better tools and we wiped their asses out. And immediately people start being like, no, that's not possible. But it's like, but it is, because they always depict Neanderthals as kind of goofy looking humans. But if you put a Neanderthal skull next to a human skull, they are totally different. Like absolutely different. Like Neanderthals don't have foreheads, and their eyes are much higher than ours. So like if you were to take my face and put it on a Neanderthal skull, my eyes would be up here. You know what I mean? And they'd be big as shit, because Neanderthal, the orbits where the eyes go, were like 3 times bigger than ours, which some scientists would say means they were probably nocturnal. Why else would they have to have such large eyes?
Who knows?
And also, they were probably furry, like an ape. And they would have had to have been super strong and tough as shit because all of the animals that they killed and ate were some of the most dangerous animals to ever exist. Woolly rhinos, mammoths, they lived where like there was no way to grow crops. You know what I mean? It just wasn't possible. And they proved that too because they found the teeth of a Neanderthal, and somehow they were able to do testing on it. And it turns out the Neanderthals' diet was 100% pretty much 99%, whatever, meat, including each other. So
they were cannibalistic too.
They were cannibalistic too, but some scientists argue the cannibalism was like ritualized cannibalism. So, like when somebody in the tribe would die, they would, do their funerary rituals, and then they would consume the body. And I mean, that is not a thing that's unknown. There are humans that do that, or there were human tribes that did that. So the idea that maybe Neanderthal did that's not super fantastical,
Yeah.
But
here's the thing:
yeah,
them being hairy and
you're talking
everything.
about a creature that had to survive in basically the harshest environment on Earth outside of Antarctica.
Maybe they're Sasquatch, or
No.
what we now call Sasquatch.
I was getting ready to say, nah, I don't think so, but you know what? It's possible. And maybe
large
the
ape-like
ones
creature
that have survived to today are so like worried about humans because we wiped them out so bad that they're just like
it's like our own prey is now stronger than us. Maybe we should be worried.
They're like, go to the deepest forests and hide. And if you can get the occasional camper here or there, that's cool. But if humans come around your area looking, freaking hide, because human equals death, which would mean we turn the whole thing around on it.
Yep.
Because this scientist said that he theorized that humanity in Europe sat around campfires and had guards and stuff and dogs because they were constantly having to be prepared for
an attack
a
by these
attack, And now, if the Bigfoot is Neanderthal, they're hiding in the middle of the woods, being like,
man's dangerous.
Don't go near
stay
them.
away.
They will wipe you out. So I can hear my wife in there watching Nuxenor. Somehow she's become a big fan of Nuxenor Chan.
Well, he is pretty good. I mean, he's made some pretty good stuff.
Yep. She likes him. Sometimes I catch her watching Asmongold too. And I'm just like, what's funny is she used to bitch all the time about YouTube. Like she literally hated YouTube. So I'd want to watch stuff on YouTube and she'd be like, YouTube sucks. It's just a bunch of blah, 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 right?
I mean, to be fair, she's not exactly wrong.
Yeah, but I think what happened is the last election cycle and all of the natural bullshits that went on, and just the fact that the mainstream media just keeps getting caught up in lies. I think that's kind of turned her to where she's like, I won't believe anything that mainstream media tells me, but I will go on YouTube and see if I can't find stuff. And that's what she's done, you know.
Fair.
And yeah, like you said, that's fair, you know. I mean, because I don't trust anything they say either. I would much rather hear what some dude standing on the side of the street with a camera phone has to say about some shit. I mean, assuming he was there when it happened and he took film of it, then you know, I mean, the main
You're cutting out there. James? Uh-oh.
pose, like, you know, throwing rocks and shit.
Yeah, not yet. You're still cutting out bad. Welcome
Right.
to the Slideshow James Show. Oh boy.
Fix it.
Seems like James needs to pay his Comstar bill. You almost came back in, but still not yet. Oh, he's out completely now. Ah, 15th, man, 15th. Pablo. Hopefully, you know, you paid it just in time. They won't accidentally send the.
Uh-oh.
Oh, there he is.
Hey, I'm on the Leth show. What's up, Leth?
We're here to talk about Command and Conquer.
James. Oh yeah, the Comstar bill got me. No, they've been working on our internet lines around here, putting in the new fiber optics and stuff.
Ah,
And it's just been, you know, doing what it do. So
so
let me make this where we all don't look pinched up. There we go. So anyway, Leth, I mean, it's your show. What are we talking about, man?
I don't know how your Comstar bill is really screwing you over now.
Hey, I can't say anything about Comstar. They're trying to make it better. So hopefully, if I just hang in and deal with this shit in the next couple months, you know, it'll be even better than it currently is.
To be fair, I mean my internet's complete crap, and they're not doing work on it.
Yeah. But
We don't have much of a choice either, so it's like we kind of have to take this one company or nothing.
yeah, that's kind of how it is. They somehow decide that a certain internet company will be in charge of a region, and then that'll be like we've been through so many down here because we've been through like Roadrunner and this and that, and now we got Spectrum, and
Uh,
you
we were
know, I don't know what
Spectrum.
happens, whether they bid on it
I don't know.
or whatever, but you know,
I mean, I guess I could eventually upgrade to what was it now, Starlink.
Starlink's supposedly kind of expensive, but super good.
Yeah, it's got like a really bad like startup price, and then a pretty bad, like monthly. It's
Yeah.
like $500 for the startup, and then $100 per month.
Yeah, if we were actually seriously going to move to Kentucky before my wife retires from her job, we would definitely have to get Starlink
Yeah.
because she works, all of her work is online. So, you know,
You need
whatever
something.
shady freaking internet they got up on that mountainside, it's like every time I call my mom, it's all jacked up. So, Jose, Leth, who is in charge of the shows, doesn't seem to be able to come up with something to talk about. What you want to talk about? And if it is anything past 3025, I want to hear it.
No, the only thing is that you reminded me to pay my Comstar bills, so I appreciate that.
Well,
I can
we all know
tell you that.
Comstar does not mess around. You pay
Yeah,
or else those HPGs go offline,
yeah,
and it only gets worse from there. You know?
yeah. They can send the mech, but I am surrounded by mechs, so I have my own defense
Yeah, but
against
here's the
Comstar.
problem. Your
Yeah,
3025 mechs might be good, but when
yeah,
that Comstar Salt Lance comes in, no, because
yeah,
they got all that high tech from the Star League era.
yeah. But don't worry, I have Kerensky's mech here, the Orion, and it is pre-painted. So they
Eh.
will have to face the power of the pre-painted mechs.
Well, I mean, I'm glad
uh,
you're happy with the pre-painted ones. I personally,
mhm. No,
I
that is.
need to do the tutorial again because I did a tutorial about painting mechs,
Mhm.
and I find painting mechs to be like the easiest thing.
Really?
You know, you just
Oh.
paint it black and then start dry brushing it whichever colors you want. And once you've got it where you want, you paint the vision screen on it red copper color, like about MechWarrior Online.
Mhm.
And then you go through and you know pick out the vents of the jump jets and whatever with metallic,
Mm.
and then put a couple of decals on that bitch, and it's done. So I mean, it's very relaxing for me, and I can paint a mech from plastic to ready to go on the table in maybe 10 minutes,
Yeah.
depending on how simple it is. Like I've showed you some of them and they're just desert, you know, like
Yeah.
Iraqi sand color with details. And believe it or not, the monotone Iraqi sand with you know all the details done up, it looks good. So, I mean, of course, then I want to talk my brother into like letting us battle it out on a desert world. If you want to
Yeah.
go crazy, you can use a little thin down brown. Don't thin it down too much,
Yeah.
and put random blotches on it, and then it'll look like the U.S. Army chocolate chip desert camo that they issued us in Iraq.
I will have time to paint like in a couple years.
No, there you go.
Because I am studying. But no, it is interesting because I have been buying games that I cannot play because I have been waiting. For example, I waited for Star Wars Armada, and then it went down, and now I cannot buy it. I was waiting for Zombicide Invader, and now it is not available. So basically, I am buying games, and I will play later.
I have
So
a
some
bunch of
people.
Star Wars X-wing,
Hmm.
and but I have the first edition. When
Mm,
it went to the second edition, and they're all like, "You're going to have to rebuy, you know, all the things." I was like, "No, I don't like this game that much." My
yeah.
buddy used to love it though, so I would play it because he would always come over and be like, "Hey," and of course he would cheat. He would do what they called the Fat Falcon,
Hmm.
which
Yeah.
you know
For
the Millennium Falcon just decked out with every upgrade,
Oh,
and
Wow.
with like Princess Leia and C3PO and all of those characters on it. Yeah, yeah. But I mean, the ship itself and
Yeah.
everything he put on it gave it some crazy advantage. So, yeah, it was super expensive to field, but it could kill half of your TIE fighter arm by itself. I mean, it's just. And then the other guy he always talked, of course, was Wedge Antilles in his X-wing. And first off, you buy the X-wing, then you buy Wedge Antilles as the pilot of the X-wing. And Wedge Antilles' thing is anytime he's fighting X-wings or TIE fighters, he gets like this huge bonus because he's so good at killing TIE fighters. It's just like, well, nice. But my favorite character was Baron Fell something. And he flew a TIE Interceptor that was painted black and had a red stripe on either side. And he had some really good abilities too. Like he could take a free maneuver at the end of your normal maneuver. So just showing off exactly how maneuverable TIE fighters are.
Yeah, I have a PC game that was programmed by a fan, Star Wars fan, that is called Bruno R. Marcos, and for some reason his website went down, but I preserved the game, so I'm going to post the link that of my account to that game in the private chat. So you can have it. The thing is that you need to install in program files directory, because if you install in program files x86, it is not going to work for the add-ons that it has to improve the graphics, because it has the installer and it has basically a zip file that you need to install. You need to unzip in the game directory, basically, and that will improve the graphics of the ships and all that. So
Nice.
the textures and all things. And there you have the Battle of Endor. It is a very, very entertaining battle. Yeah. So Bruno R. Marcus, basically. I don't know if somebody posted somebody else, but I preserved that in that link that I showed you there.
So here we are so far. Got some oars going. The ship itself
Ships.
is blue. Yeah,
Wow.
it's a Greek trireme or trireme. So that's going to be bronze, and it's going to have its cells. I haven't put the tail or the head on it yet, because that's what they call it. And I'm thinking I'm going to put the bull head on it. So, the front of it is going to have a bull head, which makes it Crete.
I have a question.
I have an answer.
Do you have a game called Twilight Imperium?
Yes.
Yes. How are the miniatures?
The version I have, the miniatures are what you would expect from a giant Risk-like board game.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the newest version, which is very expensive, I've heard actually has really decent miniatures.
Mm-hmm.
And I will tell you that game, while it may take a long time to play, if you got the right 4 or 5 people sitting around the table, is awesome.
Okay, that is because I was thinking about trying to find miniatures for spaceships, but I realized that I do not have that many miniatures. So I was thinking about buying that game for the miniatures. And well, I do not have 4 friends here that play, but so basically, remember, I live in the jungle,
You live
almost
in the
literally.
jungle.
Yeah.
You're like, welcome to the jungle, baby. You're gonna die.
Welcome to the
Anyway,
jungle.
yeah, that sucks, bro. But
Yeah. No. No.
in other news, which is
Yeah.
weird, the fighters that they
Yeah.
have in the game I had
Uh-huh.
look identical to the Sathar fighters from Star Frontiers.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I don't even know why, but in Star Frontiers, Nighthawks, they have like little cardboard chits with the outline, and the fighters in that version are
Uh-huh.
identical.
Identical. Oh,
So, I
interesting.
mean, that's one thing I could use the fighters from the game. I mean, you either say one fighter is a whole whatever, or you multi-base on one base, like 3 fighters to represent that it's a fighter squadron coming at you.
I understand that this game was released, or some of the files were released, on PDF or something like that, right?
Hmm.
Or not?
Yeah,
Am I wrong?
I don't think so.
No. No, that's because I was wondering if there was a way to get that game. Because I remember that I tried to play that game years
Star
ago,
Frontier?
many years ago, but I had some PDF that was not very good looking, like a photocopy or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was like and it was difficult to understand, and probably I lacked some documentation or something, so basically I could not play that. I also tried to play the beginner box of second edition, and basically, well, my wife didn't like spiders, so basically I had to get rid of it. So, and I regret that now, but
Why?
well,
Because of the Vrusk?
no, I regret now, because if not, I would have a beginner box for Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, Dungeons and Dragons. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought we were still talking about
No, it
Star
was a big.
Frontiers, and I was
No, it
like,
was.
your wife wanted. The only thing I could think of that was spider-like in Star
Mhm.
Frontiers was the Vrusk,
Oh, yeah.
who
No,
do
it
kind of
was.
look, but they're more praying mantises than they are
Yeah,
spiders.
yeah. No, it was
You
Dungeons and
can get
Dragons.
the PDFs on Drive Through RPG now, and they're
Mm-hmm.
actually good.
Oh, okay.
So that is an option. You can get the physical copies too, but I
Mm-hmm.
mean, for you,
Okay.
I don't know what the post would be from, um, here to freaking Costa Rica. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. And
it
printing,
might not be worth it unless you're actually really going to play the game.
yeah. And I have been thinking about saving some money to buy a color printer, but I'm not sure. At this moment, I am basically very busy with studying, so basically I can,
Yeah, you
I will have,
concentrate on that.
yeah.
What's
So
up, Ultra
basically,
American? How you doing?
Not much. I just got I just got off a live stream where I read this cover to cover and it took me less than an hour to read this book.
Oh, that's going to be such a popular stream.
It actually was like it was the most viewers I had in a while. That because I came on live stream, I got off not too long ago, and I can't lie, I actually learned some good stuff from this. Like I agreed with some of his stuff about Bronstein. I agree with some of his stuff on One to Time. The wargaming, it for me depends on what game you're running because you can't really do wargaming in Cyberpunk. You could do it in medieval fantasy though.
Yeah. Well, here is the thing. Talisian Games or whatever, the ones that do Cyberpunk Red and the Cyberpunk
Oh
Edge
yeah,
Runner,
yeah.
they have recently released a Cyberpunk skirmish game.
Well, what I'm getting saves without number by Kevin Crawford, and that's why I'm going to run my
Right.
what I'm calling my Cyberstein on because Cyberpunk Bronstein.
Right. No, I was just pointing that out that, I mean, there actually is a war game for Cyberpunk where like one side can play their gang versus another gang, or you can have cops versus runners or whatever.
Yeah, well, it's like the players are going to they're going to be creating like all the factions. They'll have the factions that they'll be in charge of, and then they'll create the enemy factions that all control against them. And then I'm also going to create like you got the one main corpo faction as well.
Sounds
So that
fun.
was, yeah. And I mean, I got this off Walmart for like dirt cheap. It was not that expensive through Walmart. Was I found this book?
Yeah. Well, it's like the thing that not only I said, but a couple of people in chat said. The OSR was and is possibly one of the greatest trolls of all time.
Yeah. Jeffro's a weirdo. There's no lying about that. But I mean, he knows what he's talking about sometimes.
I mean, why do you say he's a weirdo, though?
Because the first time I ever actually heard about him, he was doing his interview with Harmony Ginger, and he would not shut up about dancing.
Well, he likes swing dancing and ballroom dancing.
I know, but we all wanted to hear him talk about TTRPGs, and instead he was just talking about dancing. So to me, he comes off as a weirdo for the most part.
But think about this. Was he doing it on purpose?
I mean, I wouldn't put it past him, honestly. Now that you say that. I wouldn't put it past him.
Was he doing that shit on purpose just to be that guy?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't put it past him, though, now that you bring up the question. I can't see what you're holding there, Jose.
He's got Dungeon Crawl Classics.
Oh,
yeah. The point of a master troll is when the other guy has no idea that you trolled him. So he goes on a Harmony Ginger and spends 45 minutes talking about ballroom dancing. Now you have to ask yourself, was that intentional?
Oh, and there's Bruce. Hey, Bruce.
Oh, hey. Yeah, my boy. Bruce, what did you think of that parade yesterday?
I thought it was really neat. I thought we had enough showcase and everything, and I thought it was really nice to see all the stuff being shown out. We hadn't had a parade like that for a few years, and it was about time we did.
My wife pointed out that what happened to us in the Vietnam War kind of killed people wanting to have parades. Nice. Because, I mean, you got your veterans walking down the street and you got a bunch of hippies spitting at them and shit.
Yeah, that kind of
So it's like nobody wants to be a part of that.
No.
But we're past that now. And my favorite part was how it went by era.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I don't know if you saw it, Jose, but the first guys who come through were dressed up like British redcoats. You know what I mean? I mean, dead on, right?
They had good costuming.
Unit that came through, they were dressed up like Union infantrymen in the blue and everything. And then the 101st came through, and they were all in like Vietnam. Well, no, you had the World War I guys that come through, and then the World War II guys that came through, and there were Sherman tanks and shit. And then the 101st were all in their Vietnam War gear, you know, I mean, with the old M16s and shit. And it kept going through every era of war.
You got to see the Lord's flannel being displayed properly.
You got to see, I watched the 3rd Infantry do the whole where they throw their rifles at each other and shit with bayonets on the end of them.
That's the fun drill.
Yeah, they're like twirling those rifles and chucking them at each other and back and forth. And I mean, I don't know what that is, but I don't like it. I can tell you that right now. That thing makes me not happy.
There was a parade
yesterday.
Yeah, for the first time in many, many moons, they did a parade because it was the 250th anniversary of the founding of the United States Army, which was founded in 1775. So basically, the Revolutionary War had already been going on a year or two before we officially founded an army. And I think the next one they founded was the Navy or the Coast Guard or something. And then after
I've actually heard
Marine Corps. I thought it was the Marine Corps, which
it could have been the Marine Corps.
We'll be having the 250th for the Marine Corps here later on this year, I think.
Yeah, it could have been the Marine Corps because we went to war with Libya.
Yep.
When President Jefferson, the second president of the United States, had to send a frigate full of Marines to Libya to explain to them that attacking American ships and enslaving the people on them was not something we were down with. They called them the Barbary Pirates.
Yeah,
and that's why in the Marine Corps anthem, it's like from the halls of Montezuma, because of course they invaded Mexico. Yeah, to the shores of Tripoli, Libya, and all that shit happened in like 1780, maybe something like that. I mean, but yeah, the Barbary Pirates had this deal where they would basically attack European trade ships, and then of course they'd keep the ship and all the stuff on it, but then they take all the people on it and sell them into slavery. And it pissed a lot of people off. So.
And then the fucking European response, the Europeans were telling us, well, just pay the fee, just pay the jizya and let them do it.
Yeah, the European response was to pay them off, to bribe them.
Of course, it's the fucking European response. But then after, I think it was it Jackson or was it the fourth president? Because the third president didn't really do a whole lot, but the fourth president,
Thomas Jefferson.
The fourth president, I believe, founded the Navy.
Right.
And that was when we really just went to the Barbary Coast pirates. And initially, like, Thomas Jefferson was like, oh my God, this is great. Because, like, he went to Morocco first. And so Morocco is the longest standing treaty we've got. Because they were like, oh my God, you just beat the fuck out of the high-vis red outfit British. Okay, we don't really want to fuck with you. And so Jefferson thought the rest of this would be a peaceful thing. And so he went to other fucking Barbary Coast invaders and harassers, and he's like, "Hey, listen, Morocco's already signed off on this." And then the sultans were like, "Have you read the book? What book? The book that we conduct our lives with, the Quran. What the fuck is that? No, if you're not a follower of Islam, we're not going to treat you like humans. So we're going to blow the shit out of every boat. We're going to sink every vessel that we can. We're going to take all your booty. We're going to rape and pillage all your crews." And that was when Jefferson went back and he's like, no, we got to fix this. And it wasn't until the fourth president we actually had 6 ships in the Navy that went out there and fucking just stomped mud holes in people's assholes. It was great.
Yeah, a flotilla of naval vessels loaded to the brim with Marines.
Yeah, you don't want to.
They landed on the beach and just proceeded to, as Bruce said, stomp mud holes in Muslim ass. And they were pretty quick to be like, okay, we'll sign a treaty, bro. We will not mess with any ship flying the stars and bars, or actually the stars and stripes. Stars and bars is the Confederate thing.
Jose, I'd like to say good to meet you, sir. After all these times seeing you in chat.
Yeah, he's studying. He just decided to take a break from studying.
Yeah, I'm taking a break. So basically, that's because I am trying to get a degree. So basically, I am not having too much time for anything. So instead of watching TV, I joined this show. So, and you may be amazed about how much time you can just waste watching TV. So basically, I tried to.
Oh, you can waste all the time.
Yeah. So basically, I prefer not to watch TV, and I prefer to join your show.
There's a reason why they call it programming, sir.
Well, you know what? I prefer you joining my show too, Jose.
Yeah, because I am not wasting. So basically, this is why I didn't know about the parade.
Yeah, well, I just don't watch TV because there's nothing good on anymore.
Well, everybody in my live stream the other day was like, "Are you seeing this parade?"
Yeah.
So I had to actually go watch it.
We saw a little bit of it, but I was running the game yesterday, which was more important.
And it was like, oh my God.
So the only thing that I know about this parade is what you have mentioned today.
Well, let me tell you this. The speech Trump gave prior to the parade was absolutely amazing and super patriotic. And then all of the troops and they let like people from the crowd actually play around with Sherman tanks and And then there was one ceremony where like a couple hundred guys did their swearing in ceremony to join the United States Army in front of the president.
Yeah, if I
I
was
mean,
there, I would love to get into a B-17 to see what it is inside.
a death trap. But anyway,
Yeah, for real
my
war it doesn't work. It is more like a tin can with some guns attached, and basically you're suffering extreme cold, like
yeah,
being
they
in
had to wear
Canada.
those big suits.
Yeah, in Canada in a very cold winter or something while flying.
And you had
this is
the Germans who would
No
they realized
protection
there
too.
were no guns in the nose of the ship, so they would actually charge straight on at the bomber.
Mhm.
But then we okey doke them because there was a pilot that had like a shit ton of 50 cows mounted in the nose. So when the German fighters would come at him, he'd dogfight them. He'd be like, you know, like, don't try that shit with me, buddy. But you know, the movie Enola Gay tells you everything you need to know about B-17s and B-24s and all that shit. You know, like if you flew 24 successful missions, you got to go home. Like no
Enola
one
Gay?
did.
Isn't it Memphis Belle?
Yeah,
Memphis
like
Belle.
almost no one did it. I have
Yeah.
a great uncle that was a bombardier, and he was shot down over Germany. His body was never recovered.
Oh, I'm
Now, the
sorry
fact
about
that he was Jewish probably wouldn't have helped him.
Yeah.
Unless he landed amongst partisans, but no, they were bombing Berlin. So,
yeah.
And of course, when you start bombing people, they really start hating bomber crews. So, like, you know, if they capture a bomber crew, it's like, yeah, that guy's getting strung up, you know? So, and the fact that it's, you know, Yahtzee Germany and the bomber guy's Jewish, I mean, it don't take a lot of imagination to figure out, you know, that it was a bad situation. But yeah, those things were death traps, man. Like, but I mean, they were great for what they did. It was just like that was a real war. Since World War II, America hasn't actually been in a real war. And what I mean by that is we call it a police action, and therefore we use police action methods. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we don't go balls to the wall with it. Like, let's be honest, Vietnam, if we had been like, you know what? Fuck Vietnam and just started corporate bombing everything forever, they would have.
I'm going to make a new map of Vietnam.
Yeah, B-52s, when those bitches come through, when they carpet bomb, it's like 100 yards wide and a mile long. Everything in that area ceases to
You're
exist.
hiding in the mountain? Say goodbye to that fucking piece of rock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They literally changed the topography of the region. Like hills vanish, new hills show up. I mean, but we were not what we lacked the will to do the thing. And we've been that way since then. Like the Iraq War, we stormed over them, great. But if we had unleashed the full might of the U.S. military on Iraq, like from the get-go, I mean, that country would cease to exist. And that's what a lot of people don't understand, you know? But there's cool YouTube videos where like it's like British person reacts to the US Navy, and the British guys, they think their Navy's good, and then they start looking at the numbers and shit, and they're just like, England has one Air Force carrier or Navy carrier.
One Air Force carrier, one air carrier. That's it.
Yeah, I said it wrong. They have one, the Ark Royal or some shit.
Yeah.
And it's old. and it's little. And
Doesn't
then
it
when
have
the
a-
British
does that
person
jump
sees
right
like
on?
our Ford class super carrier, and they're just like, "What?"
Here's how you know. Here's how you know if these aircraft carriers of other countries have small carriers or not. Do they have a fucking ski jump at the end?
Yeah, they got that ramp.
A little ramp there. That's how you know if it's a medium size or small size carrier, because other carriers are full size and those jets need every inch of that to get stopped properly.
I was
Maybe
watching
now
a
isn't a
thing,
problem.
Bruce. I don't know if you know about it or not, but I guess they got rid of the steam powered catapults and went with like magnetic catapults.
They've been talking about that for a few years now.
And they're much, much smoother. And also they accelerate the aircraft better. Soy free Warhammer. Hey man, how you doing?
Are you multi-streaming to Rumble too? I didn't know you were doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do
Oh.
that with
I did-
this. You can go to
I
everywhere.
love Rumble. I mean, I only got like 10 followers on Rumble, but I love Rumble because
Okay.
Rumble, if I want to go off and just, spurg out and start cursing and shit, Rumble don't care. They're like, all right, whatever. Not that I'm likely to do that, but soy free Warhammer, I think that might be Holy Diver. And, he's mostly on Rumble these days.
Yeah, I just found you.
And I'm starting to mostly migrate at Rumble, not because I necessarily hate YouTube, but because I kind of do hate YouTube.
Yeah, I don't like YouTube because the fact, even though they paid me, they might have paid me. That doesn't mean that I forgive them for being communists.
Right. And they don't pay me
I
because
just
I haven't monetized anything. So
I just live stream on Rumble and then I'll download the video and re-upload it onto YouTube just so I could be people who don't have Rumble can watch it on YouTube as well afterwards.
see, Restream allows me to multi-stream to like a ton of different channels. So right now I am streaming on X, YouTube, and Rumble. I'm not streaming on Twitch because every time I would, do the Twitch thing. I mean, Bruce knows, he's been on the show.
Yeah, fucking
The
idiots.
Twitch guys show up. They're always just absolute idiots.
Why are you guys so pro-America? Why are you guys so pro-colonialist?
I don't even have a Twitch. I stopped doing Twitch after when they started banning VTubers for absolutely no reason, but let the OnlyFans girls just have it all out was the final straw for me.
See,
I don't like
I
Twitch.
just hate the Twitch people who use Twitch. Like when they come into your chat group and the first thing they ask is, "Are you pro-Palestine?" And I'm of course like, "No."
That's
No, I'm
the
not a
And then they're like, "So
Hamas
you're saying
biker
you support
fans.
genocide?" And it's like, so
actually,
that's
if it's
your whole worldview. If
it's actually Palestinians, yeah, I support genocide because I'm part Italian, and we've never liked that side of the world.
Oh, I've got your YouTube channel, Jose.
You know,
I think
James,
I'm subscribed.
those that are trying to get you to be pro-Palestine, that's the Hamas biker fans.
Yeah, I can't stand those guys. I want to put them through a wood chipper. Feet
Yeah,
first.
they come in, they're like, pro Palestine. If you disagree, you're a genocidal, evil human being.
Call me an evil human being. I don't give a shit.
And then you also got the other group that comes in and they're super pro Ukraine.
It's like I'm pro-Palestine, pro-glassing them.
Yeah.
If you've got flags in
We'll
your
take the
profile,
Gaza Strip, we'll turn it into the most beautiful resort.
That's what I'm saying. The Trump plan.
I love the
Here's
Trump
what we're
plan.
going to do. We're going to buy the Gaza Strip, level all that garbage off, and build big, beautiful hotels.
I love seeing them.
I'm like,
There's a
okay, that's a thought.
There's a great meme out there where somebody's got a box of Legos and it's just gray bricks and it says
Oh.
Tehran.
Yeah, and it's just like the bricks are all laying all over the place.
You know what, James? We just need to make a really big building and call it the Gaza Strip Mall.
Yeah. Hey, there could be strip malls in the Gaza Strip.
Yes.
I'd be okay
Like
with
I
that.
said, if you want to know,
Can there be strippers in the Gaza Strip mall? Can we get
they
strippers in the
could.
Gaza Strip?
They could.
Here's
If
the
you
problem I
really
have
want
with
to
that.
know what Palestinians are like, all you have to do is remember that every single one of their Muslim neighbors refuses to allow them in their country.
Yeah, they're not good people, and
Like,
I don't know why.
you effed up when Egypt's like, we're not taking any of these fuckers, Like they're getting bombed by Israel. Egypt seals the border. Jordan seals their shit, says they won't take any. Lebanon is like, no, fuck those guys.
Egypt
It's
loves
like,
their borders shut like a Chinese apartment.
yeah, it's like, so it's like, wow, you can't even, I don't even know what to say, Like in Ukraine, at least Poland and other Eastern European Slavic countries were like, yeah, send civilians over. We'll take them. You know what I mean? So now in Poland, there's a shit ton of Ukrainian women and old ladies and shit, right?
I heard a new term this weekend, James.
You heard what?
A new term.
What?
This is for the people that have multiple flags in your bio, but you're not living there. Like if you've got like the Ukrainian flag, the Gaza Strip flag, or whatever flag that is.
Yeah, I yelled at Sandy Peterson for that.
If you've got more than one flag in your profile, you're just a flag it. You're just a stupid simpleton flag it.
Yeah, Mr. Peterson, Sandy, had the Ukraine flag in his bio.
Nah.
And
Well, he's always been like a classic liberal, not a modern day liberal.
I don't understand how he can be any of it and claim to be a Mormon. Because, I mean, while I don't think Mormonism is correct, I know all the Mormons that I've hung out with, which is very many, have always been very conservative. You know what I mean? They don't get into all this bullshit, right? But that's neither here nor there. I just posted on X, what the do you got a Ukrainian flag in your bio for? What the hell are you thinking? And if you go on X right now and you look up Sandy Peterson, you know what you'll notice?
The flag's out.
No flag.
Gone?
That flag is gone because I gave him some serious shit. I told him, I was like, you're insulting every Russian. And I said, and there's a lot of us, almost 200 million. So, what are you doing?
Well, I don't care how the Russians think. I just know we shouldn't be over fighting, getting in their conflict.
Well, technically, I'm Russian, dude.
Well, you're technically American.
No,
you may have Russian ancestry, but it's like you're American first before you're anything else.
Well, absolutely, as it should be. I think you and I agree on that 100%.
I live in Costa Rica, and Costa Rica is neutral. Why that? Why is that? Because the legislation that applies to Costa Rica basically says that Costa Rica cannot take sides or give the appearance of taking sides. So, and it is verified with the Supreme Court of Costa Rica. So basically, if some president or politician or whoever shows support for any side on a war or something, he will be basically violating the constitutional laws, basically. So, and I think that neutrality is a good thing, given that we do not even have an army.
I think neutrality is a good thing too, and I wish America would embrace a little bit more of it.
Say again?
We should be more neutral, like the people from Futurama.
Yeah.
Have no strong feelings one way or the other.
Tell my wife I said hello.
Yes.
Yeah. When he's getting ready to die, he's just like, when you see my wife, tell her I said hello.
What is that, sir? I don't know, but my gut tells me maybe.
Yeah, they're super neutral. There was a time when it was basically American policy to stay neutral in everything.
Yeah, but that ended with World War I.
World War II is when that ended.
Well, I thought
I was about to say World War II.
My
Yeah,
question is,
it was really World War II. I mean,
Okay.
we did get involved in World War One, and that took basically the moving of mountains to get us
Yeah.
involved in World War One. But
Two made us a lot more
but
reticent,
two
I
made
guess.
us the superpower
Yeah.
Yeah.
because we were the country that didn't get bombed all the shit and had all the production. And then after that, we just become, America. Yeah, coming through to save the motherfucker. Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
So we become the police of the world. Plus, we did a lot of what do they call it? Gunboat politics down south there. I think like Costa Rica, we like threatened to blow you guys up if you didn't make us a good deal on bananas or some shit in like
I don't know.
1903. Of course, you guys made the deal. And it was because an American corporation, Del Monte or whoever, sells the freaking bananas. The Costa Ricans or Nicaraguans, whoever it was, they decided to nationalize the banana fields.
no,
So,
Costa Rica is not nationalized.
right. So the United States under Teddy Roosevelt sent gunboats down there and basically was like, here's the deal, you're going to not do that and you're going to keep selling us bananas or we're going to replace you. You will no longer be the government. And that's just how shit works. We used to bully, America used to bully the Central and South America like nonstop. It's like those guys down there, they couldn't sneeze without the U.S. sending a Navy down there to be like, no, we did it
Chiquita,
recently.
A shark has floated his way into our chat.
Yep.
Yeah.
To be
Chiquita, I
fair,
work for
Jane,
that
we weren't
company.
the only ones. The French also
Shark?
wanted to bully the Brazilians for lobsters.
Yep, the French were trying to bully Brazil.
Shark,
Gold
I
pineapple,
work
yep.
for Chiquita Banana.
Chica banana. Well,
And
I mean,
I work for that company in the past
so
years,
see?
many years ago. It was like how much? Like 30 years ago?
Yeah, I don't know if it was Costa Rica. I just said that. It was one of those countries, though, very small
Not
countries
here.
down in.
Not here. What we had here was United Fruit Company that left the company because there were so many strikes that it was impossible to basically harvest. So, and I asked a guy because that led some room for leftists and communists and all this, who basically said, yeah, Mamita Unite. This is the name of a leftist book that we see in high school. And basically, they portray United States in a dark light. Okay. And basically, I asked this guy who worked for United banana, the banana company, and basically he said, okay, first we had a job and we had a house, then the unions came, and then we do not have a job and we do not have a house. So this is the summary of what happened at the beginning of the 20th century here.
If it makes you feel any better, we did it to ourselves. Yeah,
Really?
when all of the auto workers in Detroit, Michigan decided to unionize, they destroyed the U.S. auto industry. I mean, completely. I mean, they're bulldozing like a third of New York or a third of Detroit because the city government can't afford to maintain the infrastructure.
You can buy a house for less than a VCR in
Yeah,
Detroit
up there.
right now.
Yeah. Literally, yeah. You could just go up there and buy a house for hardly anything. And it's 100% because the unions got in charge and they just kept demanding more and more and more and more until the car companies were like, yeah, we're moving to Mexico or wherever they move.
I hate to ditch y'all so soon, but my family just got back into town from their vacation, so I'm going to run over and see them for a bit. I just want to pop in and say hi. So,
Good talking to you.
I think I'm
Ultimate
gonna have to
American.
head off too. I'll see you.
So good talking to both of you then.
Before you leave, I have a TTRPG question. Costa Rica is neutral, but is it neutral good or neutral evil?
True neutral.
Based
Hold on,
on
sir.
you, I would say neutral
I
good.
think neutral good. I've never heard anything bad about Costa Rica, to my
Okay,
knowledge.
I was
okay.
So
just going by true neutral because I just can't take a side.
Yeah. So it was just
happy
kidding.
Father's Day, guys.
Happy
Hey,
Father's
Hey,
Father's Day.
gotcha.
Okay, bye.
Mother lovers. But yeah, so we used to do a lot of that gunboat posse, and we recently did it again because Panama was acting up again because they like to act up about every 20 years or so.
Well, the Chinese are down there in
So
mass.
Hesketh went down with like a shit ton of boats and troopers and shit, and let Panama know that they can either stop playing games with China or the U.S. will go ahead and just take that canal back since we built it and we consider it technically ours.
Yeah, Costa Rica did have a war in the 19th century. It was a proxy war. Some people could say that it was a war against United States because it was a proxy force that came from United States. But who knows? I don't know. You know that in that kind of things there are versions and versions. So basically, who knows? And it happened long ago. So and who
Yeah,
cares
it's
now? And now we
right.
do not even have an army. So basically, I stick to neutrality, and that's it. History is past history.
Well, I'll tell you what. As a soldier, they were constantly sending us to Nicaragua and or Honduras. We've got Air Force Base down there, and there's a compound on the Air Force Base. It's like Palermus or something like that. I forget. But this compound is First U.S. Special Intelligence Group. And yeah, so I got ETS down there. But mostly we just went on top of hillsides and shit in the jungle, and then they set up like the commo guys would set up antennas and shit, and we would just watch the perimeter. And sometimes we may have accidentally crossed into Nicaragua or something. But the fact that it was first U.S. Special Intelligence makes me think it might have been CIA operated, but they needed some infantrymen to watch over the communications guys that were
In,
and I talked to them and they said their whole job, like one of them, his only job was to listen in on the radio from Nicaragua or whatever and write down every number he heard. And then another guy's job was to write down like words. They had like all these guys listening. And then like the guys like me, our job was to sit in the perimeter and watch. And if someone showed up, you know, deal with it.
yeah, indeed, during the war, where the war in Nicaragua, um, there was this neutrality thing. So basically, the president of Costa Rica said when he was asked about the bases in Costa Rica to fight the war, he said, "I'm sorry, our law prohibits this. So sorry about that. So this is why we do not have bases from the United
Well,
States."
Hondo was like, come on, buddy. Let's go. I mean, the Air Force Base was big. They had a lot of F-16s there and shit like that. And then you had this fenced in. It was in the big perimeter, a little perimeter in the big perimeter with the concrete building. And that was the first U.S. Special Intelligence. And it was mostly, I mean, infantrymen, maybe 10 of us. But communications and military intelligence guys, shit tons of those guys. And guys that wore like, you know, khakis and button down shirts too. But yeah, it sucked because it was like, it was a hardship deployment, which means you couldn't bring your wife or girlfriend or any of that. You had to live in the compound. We were not allowed to just wander into the nearest town. You know what I mean? So basically, it was like 365 trapped in a 100 by 100 yard compound with a concrete building and a couple of Quonset huts. You
Okay,
know,
I
store
have
equipment and shit.
I have a tip in case you know people there. If they have problems with mosquitoes, dragonflies eat mosquitoes.
Yeah.
So that's a very good solution for that problem. So if you know people who is having problems with mosquitoes, now you have the solution.
That is a good solution that I stand by, Jose. But you know what we did?
Yeah.
We embraced the suck. That's an infantry thing.
Yeah, that's the Australian solution. Looking for a solution that is more dangerous than the problem. Like
Yeah,
when
the
they had a
infantry thing
rabbit
is
plague.
wherever you go, it's going to suck.
Uh-huh.
So the best thing you can do is embrace the suck. You know it sucks, so
Snuggle.
just deal with it. And maybe even instead of just dealing with it, learn to love it.
Yeah, if there's a way for you to come off and be like, I'm okay with this. This stinks a little bit, but it could be a lot worse. If you
Now, the
snuggle with
crazy-
your demons, it's easier.
Yeah, so you just embrace it. You know it's going to suck. So you're just like, whatever. Mosquitoes
Well,
are biting you. You're
le-
sleeping leaned up against a tree with your ruck on. Your M16 is literally tied to your LBE with 550 cord so monkeys don't steal it.
So
I mean,
make it suck a little less with some dragonflies.
yeah,
You know?
yeah.
You
I
can
wish
steal
they
a
would
few
plant
ones.
a bunch of dragonflies down there, but
Yeah, steal a few dragonflies in a flask and release them.
you know what your first
And
mistake here is, Jose?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
You just made a huge mistake that anyone that's ever been in the army knows.
Really? Uh-huh.
Yes.
Which one?
Never expect the army brass to do anything logical.
Oh.
Never. Because they're not going to. Now,
Okay.
an NCO might think, you know, if we nailed some bamboo shoots into the ground or something, maybe we could get dragonflies around here, right? But I guarantee you, a first lieutenant will be like, no, we can't do that.
Okay.
It's like the brass exist, a lot of them, for really just to fuck with you, you know? And I don't mean like personally.
Daryl.
Yeah, Daryl. What's up, Daryl? I don't mean personally F with you personally, but they will pass weird ass rules that make
Uh-huh.
no sense. And you have exactly zero recourse. So you embrace the suck.
Okay.
You're just like, yep, this shit sucks, and I'm okay with it. You know, because that's your only option. That's your only option at all. Yeah.
What I would say, oh my God, it sucks to have dragonflies. I'm going to embrace that.
Try
suck.
the reverse technology. It's like, oh no, reverse.
Yeah, yeah. Who knows? If that sucks more, then
No, the
how about
army
bringing
is
that
not
army,
going to allow you to
Yeah.
do anything
Okay.
that's not in their little books.
Okay.
And they have their little books. So it's like, yeah, that's all I can say, really. Yeah. So when you go to sleep, you just try to put a mosquito net over you. If you're hardcore, you might spray yourself down, except when you go out on a patrol in the jungle, you never do that because it makes you smell like the chemical. And I remember getting into a firefight with some guys. We were probably in Nicaragua, but we might have been in Honduras. And these dudes were like wearing shorts and Adidas shirts and like hats. They were like villagers. And we got into a little bit of thing. They ran, but you know, They were out there messing around, There's all kinds of shit. A lot of soldiers have died in Nicaragua, and it's been listed as accidental deaths. Training exercise. Like if you hear a soldier, especially the more high speed they are, which I don't consider myself high speed. I was just an infantryman, not airborne or any of that shit, right? But if you hear like a team of Green Berets all died in a training accident, no. Mm-mm. No, they died somewhere they weren't supposed to be doing shit they weren't supposed to be doing, but they were sent there to do it.
Deniability.
And they got caught. And, like that movie when that Special Forces team or SEAL team, whichever one it is, they don't kill the Afghanistan boy. And, of course, the boy immediately runs down the mountain and tells all the Taliban.
Yep,
that there's a 6-man team on the mountain. And they fight for like days, and half of them die and shit like that. But that is a fucked up decision. I mean, kill the kid or not.
James,
you got to silence 9mm.
James, this
plug
is
a hole
why,
in his ass and be done with it.
This is why the women and orc babies, the orcuses and the orc babies die in my campaigns.
Yeah, I know what I would do, but then I might regret it the rest of my life. But I know what I'd do. I would shot that kid. No way I would have trusted him not to tell that we're up there doing an op, which I think their op was to kill one of the high up Taliban leaders, like sniping.
Mm-hmm.
And they were creeping around to get into the position. And they ran into this like 12-year-old boy herding goats. And they let him go.
Lone survivor.
Yep. Bad idea. Fuck that kid. If it comes down to me and that kid, I'm going to pick me every time. Because I love me some me. You know what I'm saying? And I hate to say it, but yeah, I'd have ghosted that bitch in a second and hit him under some rocks. And we would have went on with the mission. But everyone's not like me. Thank God. But anyway, yeah, Lone Survivor. Yeah, that's what it was called. And they had my most favorite rifles in that show. They were using the SCAR, the FN SCAR, H1 and S1s. I love those rifles.
Mosquitoes may suck, but surviving mosquitoes doesn't sound very epic.
See, shark-nosed training accidents. Because the Marines are the same way. You'll have a Marine Raider recon group just vanish, or a Marine sniper vanish, and it's like training accident. It's like, really? Because anyone who dies, the Navy SEALs, same thing. SEAL team goes missing, training accident. Because they can't tell you what they were doing. You know what I mean? Because it's like top secret shit. They're out there, doing all this hardcore high speed shit. So like if I had got killed in Nicaragua, it would have been a training accident because it would have been embarrassing, to admit we were in Nicaragua when we shouldn't have been. You see, if they recovered my body, if they didn't, then the Nicaraguans could parade me the body around and be like, we got him, whatever, right? But yeah, every branch, Navy, Air Force, Marines, every branch has some high-speed bastards that always die of training accidents. Because the shit they're actually doing is so top secret that they can't even tell the family of these guys, these SEAL teams and shit like this. Even the Air Force, people make fun of the Air Force, right? But the Air Force have these teams of guys whose only damn job is to go behind enemy lines and rescue pilots. And that is some hardcore shit. You know, like a fighter jet gets shot down, the pilot ejects, lands 20 miles behind enemy lines, and you and your crew got to load up and get him.
Yeah, first they need to acknowledge that the plane was downed, and that's embarrassing. And then getting
Yeah,
him
we
to
don't like
somewhere.
acknowledging the plane was downed unless we have no choice. That's like a thing. However, the Houthis did manage to shoot down a F-118, I think. And not really. What happened is they were shooting anti-ship missiles at the carrier, and the carrier went hard to starboard, and the aircraft was on the deck, and it rolled off, fell into the ocean. And then the Houthis claimed that as like they destroyed it. Technically, I guess they did.
Technically, it was downed.
Yeah, to the bottom of the ocean.
Not from the air, but it was downed.
Yeah. And those things are not cheap.
Nope.
Now, speaking of carriers, Bruce, the new Japanese carrier, it doesn't have the ramp and it's very small, but it's only equipped with vertical takeoff and landing F-35s.
That's interesting. We'll see how those work out. We'll get a good chance to see how those work out here pretty soon, I think.
You think they'll let the YF-22 out of the freaking?
No.
It's like we've got a fighter that is so hardcore that we don't even let people see it. We literally keep those things in barns because we're like, yeah, people aren't going to believe this shit. You know what I'm saying?
You know, if you look at the technology of 1987 when they made the F-22, they just came out with a 386 MS-DOS computer, right? Like,
right.
Finally got to the XT or AT computer. I mean, the Amiga hadn't even debuted yet, I think, for Commodore. And yet this is the most hardcore fighter jet. And now we've got an even cooler fighter jet. They're building the 47, the F-47.
The F-47, yeah. They named it after Trump's being the 47th president.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be just as aggressive as a 22, but with all the supercomputer capacity as a 35.
Yeah, that's why if you ever watch Habitual Line Crosser,
every day,
the F-30 whatever,
F-35,
the F-22 is constantly calling it a nerd and shit like that.
Come on, nerd. What are you going to do?
Like, whatever, nerd. And then it's like, Uncle Sam, please let me out of the hangar. I have no one to hang out with but this raccoon. I need an interception, Uncle Sam.
I don't know if you can see this or not, but I believe Buff Franklin 24.
24. Yeah. Buff is the B-52.
Yes.
There's one episode when they're like, yeah, we're probably going to have to replace Buff. And Buff is like, really? And America's like, hell no. You'll be, I mean, when we figure out a way to send you into space, you're going. Because the B-52 has been in service for like 70 years.
Yeah, there's fathers, sons, and grandsons that have been on that fucking plane in the air crew.
And we apparently just bought, sorry, Bruce, but we apparently just bought Rolls-Royce jet engines from England because they had to be custom designed to fit the B-52 because of the way the engines are attached to B-52s. But yeah, I've seen B-52s through the scope of the Bradley main gun flying, I don't know, a mile up or whatever, heading north in Iraq. Whatever was on the other end of that 3-plane group of B-52s was fucked. I can tell you that right now.
I think my favorite isn't the Buff, though.
They drop nukes. They drop giant bombs. They drop enough bombs to just clear out. I saw that SR-72 Dark Star. It's like the SR-71 Blackbird, but faster. And the SR-71 during its day, it could fly so fast that at one point the Russians, actually the Soviets at the time, fired an anti-aircraft missile at it, and it just kicked it into gear and outran it. And it's just like, really? It's like a spy plane that can literally outrun air-to-surface missiles that are designed to shoot down planes. That thing flies so high that if the pilot was crazy enough and just pulled back on the stick, he'd go to space.
Yeah.
He wouldn't come back, but he would go. I mean, and crazy thing too, when it takes off, it rattles like a bag full of tin cans because all the plates on it are built slightly smaller than they need to be, so they rattle. But when it gets high and starts going fast and comes up to speed, the heat causes the plates to expand, and then they fit perfect.
That's when you get a seal on the fuel tank. On
Can
the
you even
fuel
believe
injection.
that? We designed an airplane
You had to
where
fill it up.
the fuselage is only correctly fitting when it's doing Mach 5.
3.
And the rest of the time, it's just rattling.
The 71, you would fill it up on the tarmac, and then immediately it'd have to deploy, and you'd have to bump into an air refueler on way to its destination.
Yep.
So you were a logistical hero if you were able to keep that thing going on its missions the way you're supposed to.
Yep. But yeah, I've read stories of people who worked around them saying, like, when those things would be coming down the runway, taking off, not landing, they would just rattle. Every plate on it was rattling. And then they'd get that thing up to altitude and hit speed, and the heat would cause all the plates to expand, and then it would be structurally perfect. And yes, outran a freaking Russian surface-to-air missile. Just the pilot saw the missile launch, and he just grabbed the freaking accelerator and said, and that bitch hit like Mach 5. Pow! They're like, yeah, good luck. You know. But yeah, in the Dark Star, they're talking about not only using it as a replacement as a spy plane, but quite possibly militarizing it in other ways. So we could have an aircraft. Well, the SR-71 could carry a nuclear cruise missile on the roof. It could be outfitted, and it looked like a baby airplane attached to the roof of the SR-71. And the idea was you fly as fast as you can, and when you get near the target, this thing launches up, and then it's got its own retro rocket. The SR-71's gone, and it just zooms into the target. Pow! And I mean, it can only carry the one, but you only need one. You know, I mean, you don't need a lot of those. You guys aren't talking too much. I hope it's not my fault, but the United States government hired a company to make us a brand new tank. And after years and years of trying to make a brand new tank, you know what they realized? They can't make a tank better than the M1. So instead of making a new tank, they just re-outfit the M1 hull with upgraded electronics and shit. Like the new one they're working on has a built-in point defense laser that can track an incoming nuke and shoot it down with a laser.
Well, they did that with in Germany. They did that with the BF-109. It was upgraded and upgraded and upgraded until the end of the war.
Wiki, no cookie, net. Yeah.
Do you remember the G.I. Joe Night Ravens?
Of course, it was just an SR-71.
Yeah, I just
and G.I. Joe had F-14 Tomcats.
Yep, those were the Sky Striker.
I was always super freaking like I loved the look of the Hiss tank, but I don't think it would be a good tank in real life.
No. Don't give me an open top tank, please.
But I mean, it looked cool. But yeah, they realized that the actual body, hull, chassis, all that of the M1 tank can't be improved upon. I mean, it's at the pinnacle. So they're changing the engine. They're going away from the jet turbine engine to this big freaking diesel engine that's supposed to put out even more horsepower, some high speed thing like that. And they're upgrading the gun from a Rheinmetall 120 to like a 130. And then they're mounting all kinds of point defense weapons and ECM shit on it. Because we are learning from the Ukraine war, right? Like drones are changing everything. The fact that some nerd in like 20 miles from the front line can send a drone directly into your foxhole to ruin your day. I mean, that's not cool.
Did you know that there is already a board game called Game of Drones?
I did not.
Yeah.
But yeah, the way Russia and Ukraine have been using drones and shit is a wake-up call to the rest of the world, because the rest of the world started looking at that shit and being like, yeah, we're not ready for that. But America's like, we will be, though. So the new M1 tanks got this thing that disrupts like signals and shit, so that if a drone gets like within a couple hundred yards of it, it immediately loses contact with the controller. So, that's what it is. Now, England had a really good idea, and I kind of wonder if Russia's going to steal it, right? They basically took a radio transmitter, like, I don't know, like one of those old radio transmitters, right? And they programmed it to constantly transmit on every frequency. So you've got a box with a power source and an antenna constantly just sending radio waves out on every frequency. And they found that it F's drones up like nobody's business. And you can build one for like a couple $1,000. Because a lot of these drones are radio controlled. As soon as they get within range of this thing, it's like, rah, And then, some designs are just peak genius engineering. The M1, apparently, until we discover some material better than what we have now, is a peak performance vehicle. Except, like I said, they are getting rid of the turbine because it's too expensive to replace. And in the desert, they were replacing M1 engines like every month.
To me, the genius design is the OV-10 Bronco, because it is better than a helicopter and cheaper than an A-10.
But yeah.
And it can do both helicopter and A-10 job.
Yeah, but come on. Who doesn't love the A-10?
We're not gonna get rid of the A-10. That thing is too iconic.
Yeah, it's like
that's a morale boost.
You know how many times the A-10 has been retired from service?
Yeah, I know, but the thing is that it is cheaper. So basically, if you lose a Bronco, it is cheaper than losing an A-10, and it is faster than a helicopter. So basically, you have the like a hybrid role there.
Jose, my good friend, you're Costa Rican. You don't understand the American mindset. The A-10, the fart of death, we will keep that thing in service forever just cause. We like the sound of that machine gun going off. It has nothing to do with logic in any way. It's just like you hear something's dead. We're like that. We have cottonballed the A-10 like 6 times and said, nope, we're not using this shit. And then some shit breaks out somewhere, A-10s. Like,
do they have armor? A-10, put the A-10 out there now.
Yeah, it's like, it's like you come from a peaceful country full of good people. We come from a country that does nothing but think about warfare
How can we blow shit up
nonstop. That's all Americans do.
That's American fucking pastime right there.
Like American children, we play war. And
Look
then you
what I'm
grow up
fucking
and
with
you
right
play
now.
war games. And then you join the army and you go to war. And then you come home and you talk about all the crazy shit you did in the war and play war games. And then because we are a warrior nation, we did not become the United States by peace. We literally had to do some horrible shit. I mean, you ever seen that giant portrait of Washington crossing the Delaware River and all the ice and shit? That was on Christmas night, and they snuck across the Delaware River so they could ambush Hessian mercenaries in their sleep on Christmas and kill them, which they did.
And that is such a successful technique that we used it again in Texas because we were getting our ass stomped. And at the Battle of San Jacinto, what happened was 60 Texans snuck into the 300 strong Mexican camp and slit their throats while they were snoozing. That is a valid technique. We advise everybody to try to do that.
Our entire culture is based like we celebrate the day the British surrendered. You know what I mean? I don't know what it is. We do weird shit like keep a bomber in service for 70, 80 years.
We also
because it's a good bomber, so we're like, fuck it. You know.
And we also celebrate the 63 other Independence Days given to people by the UK.
Yeah.
Because we find that funny.
And we celebrate supposedly Mexican Independence Day, even though it's not actually Mexican Independence Day. It's just the day the Mexicans beat the French. But we will drink for any reason. So if you walk into a restaurant and a Mexican guy says, it's Cinco de Mayo today, so we're running 2-for-1 margaritas, Americans are like, stack them up. You know, it's like St. Paddy's Day. In Ireland on St. Patrick's Day, you go to mass. And then you come home and have a quiet family dinner. In America, you get blitzed and wear a green hat.
Let me talk about war in Costa Rica. In 1979, I think, or 78, I don't remember, there was a risk of invasion from the dictator of Nicaragua. It was not Daniel Ortega, it was the previous one. I do not remember his name. And there was a risk of invasion. So basically what they did is that they sent public employees from the government to the north. They gave them a rifle and basically practice some shoots, and that's it. If there is an invasion, you will be in charge of shooting the invaders.
Those damn Nicaraguans was always getting into some shit, wasn't they?
Yeah.
Are they the ones that had the Sandinistas and all that shit too?
So, by the
Nicaragua.
And by the way, the risk of invasion was stopped because Venezuela filled the airport with military aircraft. So basically, in case of an invasion, basically Venezuela will blow up Nicaragua. Basically.
Yeah, Venezuela is like, you're not messing with Costa Rica, bro. Don't make us bomb you into the, you know.
Yeah, so basically that's the funny story in the 79 or those dates.
You want to hear something I don't know if you know or not, but if you don't know it, you'll be happy to know it. Brazil sent combat troops to World War II, but in all the pictures, you can't tell because when they volunteered and they joined the Brazilian, and I'm talking thousands, they were all equipped exactly like U.S. infantrymen. They had their own chain of command and everything leading up to the big guy at the top, you know, Patton or whoever it was, right? And they fought like in Italy and all these places. And people don't even know that because they were all dressed exactly identically to Americans. So if you see an old World War II picture and you see a guy standing there, he very well could be a Brazilian. you know, because whereas Argentina maintained its neutrality during World War II.
Daryl says, while you nerds are painting minis, I'm crafting a ghillie suit.
Crafting a ghillie suit. Well, I mean, why? I mean, deer don't give a shit if you're in a ghillie suit or not.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to, go ahead. That's cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, sometimes I nail metal scales to leather to make lamellar armor, so I can't judge you. Because again, why? That lamellar armor will not stop a 9mm, so it just looks cool.
I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to be doing tonight. If I'm going to the hospital to pump out a void that's been flooding since it started raining on fucking Thursday. Or we've already pumped it a couple times. Boss is on it right now, and I'll be showing up at work at midnight tonight. So that's the joy.
So you're up early.
No, I'm getting ready to go to bed.
Oh,
I wrapped up a show with Janet. We talked about the movie The Abyss, which was pretty okay. No, the theatrical version of that movie sucks.
Oh, well, hold on. Wait. Am I thinking about the right movie? Am I thinking about the one where they go on the Russian submarine?
Nope. That's I don't know what movie that is. The start of the movie The Abyss, there's a SSBN that gets sank by an unknown contact that's got blue and purple on it. And then they show you this underwater petroleum crew that's part of the USNS, the Naval Science Service. And they are dealing with kind of a recovery situation. Things change over because they want to figure out what happened to the SSBN that got sank. And so the people up top are noticing, hey, we're going to drop some Navy SEALs in your base and just help them out, let them do what they need to do. That Michael Bean's part of it. And then they have a situation to where the hurricane comes, so their communications are cut off entirely. And some stuff gets blown off the ships and the platforms above down on this poor little operation on the seabed floor. And then finally, by the time the movie ends, basically the movie is really chopped up, the theatrical version. If you watch the special edition of it, there's an additional 20 minutes where Ed Harris and aliens are having a conversation about what the fuck to do with Earth. Because the aliens are kind of upset that all the humans seem to do is blow shit up. Well, we're talking about this. And
Right.
it's a really good movie, but it's a peacenik movie written by James Cameron. So don't expect it to be rah, 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 go America, go sail Delaware and blow up fucking Ruskies and fucking Hessians and everybody else. It's a James Cameron film, but it's really a good movie. The special edition, at least, isn't cut up to hell. It's just
Didn't
a 3-hour plus
he do
movie.
Avatar?
He did Avatar. I haven't watched a movie his since True Lies. Nope.
True
Excuse me.
Lies was good.
I was forced to watch Titanic, which I would not say anybody needs to watch that.
Nah. I always say Rose was actually the villain of that movie.
I would agree.
But Avatar is basically a giant movie on why you should hate the United States. Because the bad guys are 100% hoorah Marines.
Yeah.
And the good guys are weird blue aliens that like to stick their tails in other animals because that's how they reproduce and shit.
It's literally a furry-friendly film.
Yeah, it's basically a film for furries.
Yeah,
It's Ferngully with U.S. Marines.
Yeah, I've heard that. Ferngully, but with giant blue cats.
And I've watched that movie.
And it's sad because Ferngully was actually really cool.
Ferngully, Dances with Wolves, all the same shit. And I'm tired of that movie. And I told Janet, I'm like, I'd rather watch A Knight's Tale with her than watch fucking Avatar sequel.
Yeah, Ferngully was cool because what made Ferngully cool, and I watched it with my daughters, is the music.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because you had like Tone Loc do a song, and he's like in the movie, he's like a big lizard, And then you had Robin Williams plays this crazy bat that escaped from a lab, and he has this whole song. And then what's his name? The guy who played Rocky in Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Tim Curry.
Tim Curry is the bad guy, and he has this whole song about polluting everything. Like boiling rain, falling down, or acid rain.
Oh God.
And all this shit. You're going to learn to love my sweet, sweet, sweet toxic love. It was just, there were some good songs in it, and it was cute. It was an Australian guy gets shrank by fairy and then hangs out with the fairies and then tries to stop the deforestation of somewhere in Australia. And it's like, yeah, that's a cute little movie, whatever. I mean, it wasn't super preachy. And, and even the guys who were doing the deforestation stuff, they weren't depicted as bad guys. They were depicted as working class dudes, and that's what they did. They were loggers. That's all. They weren't like blatantly evil, looking for unobtainium or whatever. Like at one point, the toxic sludge guy gets in their radio and convinces them that they need to keep working. And the two guys on the inside, one of them's like, you know what this means, right? And their guy's like, what? And he's like, overtime. And they keep working. So literally, there's no malice with these guys. They're just cutting down trees because it's what they're paid to do. But whereas,
yeah, well, James Cameron has his unique way to see things.
He certainly does. Yeah. I mean, he can be a great filmmaker. We know that because of past things he's done. I'm not saying he's a Stanley Kubrick or, what's his name that made Goodfellas or any of that, but he can make good movies, but he's gotten weird in his old age about politics and shit. And
he's kind of weird. I don't really appreciate his newer films. And then we started going through his personal life a little bit during the show, and he's done trauma bonding with all of his ex-wives. All of his ex-wives were there during the worst shot of his life, and like none of them stuck around because after the situation's done and over with, then they divorce, and he goes to a new project to work on, and he finds a new wife to irritate. He's had like 5 wives, and they never last. The guys just poison for relationships. And
at some point, you'd think he'd just give up.
I would hope. I would hope.
Just be like,
Limbaugh had 4 wives.
See, I'll never have 4 wives.
Hollywood.
I mean, I've had 3 wives, but I guarantee you I'll never have 4.
That's Hollywood. So
Yeah.
What to expect? By the way, talking about things that you probably may enjoy, I ordered the complete series for Black Sheep.
Oh yeah, we used to watch that on TV.
That's a good show.
That's a good show. Yeah.
Back in the 80s, like the only channels we had, all they showed was like old 60s syndicated shows. So you would watch like MASH, Baba Black Sheep, Marshall Dillon, whatever the name of that was.
Gunsmoke.
Gunsmoke? Yeah. I mean, and that was just what we watched because that was what they showed on our TV.
And then,
a good show.
We didn't have cable. There was no way in hell we were ever getting cable. So it was just kind of like, okay.
And
whatever.
this is something that I liked and I wanted since long ago. So basically, I decided I'm going for it now.
Yeah.
Now,
Poor little sheep who've lost their way. Ba, ba, ba. You know?
Did you know that the real name of the squadron, because this is the name that they acquired before people, so it was renamed to be political correct, but the real name that they had was the Bastards of Boynton.
I think
It
they
wa-
were Marine pilots.
or something. Yeah, but they call themselves the Bastards of Boynton,
Yeah.
and they obviously they could not translate that for official purposes, so they basically named the squadron as the Black
Yeah.
Sheep.
They used to be a lot stricter about that sort of
Yeah,
shit back in the day.
yeah.
James, I finally ordered from. I got something called Dungeon Grappling, and
Yeah.
then I also ordered the advanced OSE and the basic OSE.
Well, OSC, I can tell you right now, if you like Moldve Cook D&D, you're going to love it.
Okay.
And also, if you like extremely well organized games where every single thing you might look for in the rule book is super easy to find, you're going to love it. As a matter of fact, that is really OSC's main strength, is the fact that the guy who did the formatting just did the best job of formatting a rule book ever.
Okay.
I
By the
mean,
way, guys, I need to leave because my break got very long.
yeah, you need to get back to the homework, don't
Yeah,
you?
yeah, I think so.
The
So
best,
thank
the
you.
best of wishes to you there, Jose,
Okay.
and good meeting you, sir.
Yeah, it's good to talk to
Yeah,
you.
it's
And
good. Good
I
to,
would have stayed more if I didn't have homework, but I must leave. Okay.
yeah.
So thanks. Okay.
Well,
Bye.
yeah, don't make me kick you. Go do your homework.
Okay. Okay. Bye.
Bye. Yeah, Bruce, he's a really cool guy. Mostly a Battletech fan, but he's a general sci-fi fan, and
You talking
just
about
the
Jose?
nicest guy. He's been like, he used to come on my channel every day, but then he started going to school to get his degree. So, um, you know,
All
he's
the best for him.
being smart. You know what I mean? And yeah, yeah, yeah. He's a very decent guy. Um, I like him an awful lot. But
Seems like a very nice man.
yep, I am putting camouflage green sloppily, I must say, all over these colonial marines from the Aliens franchise. Like this guy right here is Dietrich, because all these guys, they got the names on the base.
So I just bought this new camera. I love this new camera.
Do
I
you?
will not. The Razer camera I'm using right now is fantastic.
Nice.
It's not fucking up like my other camera was. The this one here seems to
Oh,
go.
look at that. That yeah, your picture is beautiful.
So
I'm using the Logitech HD something something something, so way better than the computer camera,
yes.
but not as good as your camera for sure.
Well, this is a Razer. Let me find the specific
Here's
type.
my boy right here, Apone, Staff Sergeant Apone.
He was such a good man.
Yep.
That guy that was playing Apone, what happened was he was prior military, and when they cast him, he gets this group of people that they're filming in Britain.
Yeah.
And when you film in Britain, like there's certain things that happen in Britain, like you have to have tea time, you have to have tea time breaks.
Right.
And that was one of the big problems during the filming of Alien. And I don't know if they had the same problem with Aliens, but he kind of dug deep on getting to shouting matches with all of these idiots that he had. That
Right.
were around him, so he got everybody facing forward. This is a Razer Kiyo streaming webcam, and it has 100 or 1080p at 30 frames a second. I will stream at 720 at 60 frames a second ring light. And I love the fact that the light right in front of the camera lens, it's got a ring that lights up, kind of like this magnifying glass here. So it helps with anything.
The thing I hate about my camera the most is that it never seems to want to focus in on anything I hold up.
I've noticed that, and that's why I went
hate
with this
that.
one.
It's like, why? Just like if I really fight with it, it will focus in. But the problem is, for me at least, is if you're at all like shaky, it's not going to focus in. And I just naturally have the shakes. So, you know, like holding something up like that is very difficult for me because, you know, my hands, I got tremors basically.
Yeah.
And no, I'm not getting that disease, but I do have tremors.
Well,
But,
let's
see.
That's $47.99.
Yeah, that focused in for a second. That's Hicks. And he doesn't have his normal gun. He's got a shotgun out for close encounters.
Now, the only problem I have with this PC or with this setup is that Razer and NVIDIA both seem to think they can just do updates whenever they want to.
Yeah.
So if you're like the type that you want to control things, your system runs a little bit roughshod until you're like, okay, fine, you can do your updates. It's a pain in the butt. That's the only negative. Everything's now using AI, and I don't like it, but I can't stop it.
I have a miniature of one of Bear's. Well, one of the people that Bear does that I love so much. And it's a hybrid miniature that someone made. Oh, I know who made it, Pap's Skill. But it's Jesse the Body Ventura, like from Aliens, except
oh wow,
he's wearing marine armor from Aliens, and he's got a smart gun. But it's Jesse Ventura from Predator. I mean,
I was in the Baja.
Yeah. What's it always say? I live in the Baja.
You wanna come down? We'll have some fish tacos.
Yeah, right. That guy. I mean, back in the day, though, he was a badass. I mean, for real.
Yeah. Nowadays,
for real.
The rest of us, he's old as shit. You know.
I mean, Navy SEAL, freaking big as shit.
I was a Navy SEAL.
He was the guy who was in charge of doing all the weapons training and shit like that on the movie Predator.
I'd heard about that.
Like he helped the other guys out.
Yeah.
And also, the rotary machine gun was supposed to be Arnold Schwarzenegger's. And Schwarzenegger wasn't feeling it. So they handed it to Jesse because, I mean, Jesse Ventura at that time was way bigger than Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, they didn't do any together shots of them on Predator because Running Man was coming out within 6 months, and they had to keep them separate. So when you saw Running Man, you were surprised at just how small Schwarzenegger was compared to Jesse the Body Ventura.
Right. Yeah, he played Captain Freedom. Yeah, he comes in there throwing that shit off. He's like, I won't do it, Damien. You know, this is a game of honor, blood and death, you know, and it's like, okay.
So I was in the Pepperbox Discord earlier today, and I was reading, somebody was bitching about how the gun, the firearms discipline in Predator is absolute shit. And I'm like, dude, stop. It's a fucking movie. We're lucky we got the movie we got. Okay, we almost had a film with fucking Jean-Claude Van Damme dressed up as a praying mantis, and that would not have been good.
Yeah. I would have told that guy to like suck some nuts, because I'd have been like, so you're going to sit here, you armchair freaking piece of shit, and tell this Navy SEAL and all these other dudes how they're doing shit wrong? It's like, yes, having good trigger control, that's awesome at the range. When you're in the middle of the jungle in a firefight, that shit goes right out the fucking window.
Yeah, I'm not going to say shit to anybody.
You know what I mean? It's like, how fucking arrogant, you know? Oh, I can't believe that they shut the fuck up, you know? It's like when the adrenaline starts pumping and rounds are flying and shit, and you're thinking these guys are going to behave, you know? I mean, look at footage of like any special forces team doing shit. They're doing some crazy shit. You know what I mean? They're out there making it happen, right? I kind of dislike when people, now this guy might have been in the service, but if the guy wasn't in any service at all, I would say, how about you just shut the fuck up?
Yeah,
You know?
and that's basically what I said. Thou shalt not talk shit about Predator 1 and 2. Like, we're lucky we got the 2 good movies we got. Everything else since then has been shit.
Like, and I mean, even if the guy was in the Navy, I would still take that. That
Jeez,
still
thanks.
counts.
Yeah.
A guy in the Navy, he can still talk shit because, I don't know, he might have used to have been a SEAL, you know, which means he knows some shit, because those SEAL guys are crazy. Like, they're just absolutely insane.
There's some SEALs I give a little bit of wiggle room to. There's others that come out and, like, I know a lot of guys that have dropped out of SEAL shit, and I don't really besmirch them for that, because I couldn't have made it through the SEAL fucking program.
Buds is
Could've
tough,
dropped that butt.
and from what I understand, it's all in your head.
Yeah, I know my body will break at a certain point. Like, I've already experienced that. Hey, 2 hernia surgeries, awesome. So I'm unhappy about how certain things are, but it is what it is. And there's some people that are just way too full of themselves. Like, I'm reading up more and more that the guy that was in Lone Survivor, that guy, there might be some stuff that he kind of spoke not so truthfully about. I don't know if that was just to make a fucking Hollywood production, or if that was something that he did just trying to impress some girl on Facebook. I'm trying to figure that out. Is he worth it? Yeah.
Well, he was Army, right?
Mm-hmm. Either Army or
probably
Air
the
Force, I'm not
second
certain.
thing then. It's like a rule with infantrymen. You know, you're going to talk some shit. It's a guarantee, you know.
Mhm.
It's kind of like, you know, what they talk about with old men and fishing stories. You know, people got their war stories, and 90% of it will be true. But of course, if there is an opportunity to make themselves look even more like a badass, most people are do it, you know. They're going to do it. I mean, not every person. A lot of people will stick to their guns, but yeah, a lot of other people, they're going to be like, so I was surrounded by 92 VC, you know, whereas it might have just been 9. But you know what? Being surrounded by 9 VC is still scary as shit.
Yeah, I don't want to be surrounded by 2. I'm good.
Yeah, yeah, right. I'm good. I mean, I don't want to be the guy in the banana grove and we were soldiers out of ammo, literally knifing these bastards because that's all I got, a freaking knife. You know, it's like, no, thank you.
Tango
So
Mike
if
Mike
that
already
guy,
did that
if
for
that
me.
guy talked a little shit when he got home, I'm going to be okay with it, you know? And I learned this. You know where I learned this? The VFW. A very old, very wise Vietnam vet. I was sitting there drinking a beer and everybody was talking. And I was kind of like, I told the guys, like, what? you know, because the guy talking was talking some mad shit, you know what I mean? And I was like, did that really happen? And this old Vietnam vet said, look, it don't matter. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, the dude was in Vietnam. He did get shot. He does have a Purple Heart. If he wants to sit in here and drink Pabst Blue Ribbon and tell stories, do you really care? And I thought about it. I was like, no. And he's like, so there you go. You know, some people tell fishing stories about how the fish was like yay big. And some people exaggerate on how deadly the situation they were in was. But at the end of the day, yeah, that guy was in combat, fighting with the VC and NVA and all that shit. And, you know, got shot. And so who cares? Now, you Navy guys, it might be different, but that's kind of, you know, you let the old guy bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Maybe you can get him a little trim if he tells some good stories. So why you want to jump in the middle of that, you know? Just let him tell his stories. I mean, me, when I was at the VFW, we got one right here in town. I would just drink my beer. Sometimes I'd buy a round for one of my buddies and listen to the Vietnam vets tell stories because I always felt like super insignificant compared to them, you know? And they'd always be like, did you see combat? And I'd be like, yes, sir. And they'd be like, oh, yeah, where? And I'd be like, I was in the Gulf War. And they'd be like, cool, man. And they'd be like, whatever. But in my head, I'm like, I was in the back of an armored vehicle in the desert shooting idiots. And you were creeping through, you know, triple campy jungle, knifing people who were just as good at it as you were. So I always felt like a fake compared to these guys, you know? Now they're all dead. Most of them. It's a damn shame. They got treated like shit by their own country. And they were probably one of the best generation of soldiers this nation ever produced. I mean, for real.
I could agree with that. I'm not going to disagree with you on that. I think a lot of these guys were treated like shit, you know, and they were continuing to treat like shit. We got guys down at Haven for Hope here in San Antonio that they're part of the veteran outreach homeless program, and they're never going to have home ownership. They're never going to be able to go to their own place. They're going to be stuck having a roommate in a wheelchair and a fucking, you know, barely able to enjoy themselves. And so
they're never going to forget getting off the airplane in California and having people yelling baby killer and spitting on them.
No, that's going to fucking stay with them the rest of their life. And
that will stick with them far longer than the trauma they may have suffered when they were actually in the shit.
Yeah. Agreed.
Now, I was lucky because the United States Army learned from the Vietnam thing. So when my unit got back from the Gulf, they threw parades and had all the people out there cheering and treated us like heroes because, you know, a lot of those guys knew how it had affected our Vietnam veterans. And they're like, yeah, we're not doing this. You know, we're just not going to do this again. And so cool, you know. There were always some idiots that are like, no blood for oil, and it's like, shut the fuck up, you know.
That's what we told them.
Yeah, they're like, just shut the fuck up. You know, I've told people who've said shit like that. I've been like, do you think I had a choice? Well, you joined the army, didn't you? Yes, I did. But you know what the thing is when you're a soldier? You take an oath, and then you do what they tell you to do. And if you're too fucking good to do that, then don't join the military because you're a piece of shit. You know?
Yeah.
You follow orders honorably and expeditiously because that is what you do. And these people, you know, I don't know. Hopefully, these younger people they'll figure shit out because I ain't got a lot of respect for some of these younger guys. It's like you see them and you're just like, how? You know, like how in the hell did this person survive?
James, I appreciate spending time with you, brother. I probably should
Time
be
to
going.
go?
Yeah, got to get some sleep. Got to get a few hours sleep before work tonight.
Before you leave, I've got one thing I want to talk to you about, and it'll be quick.
Go ahead.
Did you see the Republican congressman smoke that fucking idiot the other day?
No.
Yeah, the guy was like, so who do you think who are you going to get to do whatever he said? And the Republican, without missing a beat, says, oh, it'll probably get done in the same way that your mom makes sure your Hot Pocket's ready for you when you get home and the Xbox is on. Oh, and the guy trying to report just stopped in his tracks. It looked like somebody kicked him in the balls. Because, I mean, this guy just literally said, you are a basement dwelling loser. Shut up and go away. But anyway, I'll talk to you later, brother.
Not a problem. If you could ever post, let me know where that's at. That'd be great because I'd love to see that.
Okay. If I find it again, I think I was watching Asmongold or something.
Okay.
And the liberal was trying to basically catch the Republican in some shit. And the Republican basically said, you know, about his mom making him a Hot Pocket and keeping the video console, the video game on or some shit. And like the lefty just, I mean, he was destroyed. You know what I mean? He just was standing on the sidewalk, just destroyed. But have fun at work, bro.